Trimming out the back strap, one of my favorite cuts of meat on the whole thing. I can do most of what I want to do with this knife. I want to show you what we're starting with. Okay, see what it looks like when we're starting. And on the back side, what it looks like. Got some heavy bowstring on the back of there, right? Now, you'll see there's actually another little muscle that lays right along that back strap. And I'm going to go ahead and trim that out. I want to get that off of there. What I normally use these for at home is roast or steak, mostly steak. If I was at home, I could take a little bit more time and I could go back over that piece of meat and trim some of that out. That would go into my grinding pile, but for today, for our time purposes, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trimming that. So I got that one side muscle out, and then down here, this is all fat. That white, hard fat, that needs to come out of there. I don't want to put that in my mouth and feel it for a couple weeks. So it is a little tedious, but it's worth it. You can kind of see what it looks like now. Okay, I trimmed all those little pieces of fat out. Now this sort of stuff here I'm not too worried about. If it looks like it's heavy, thick stuff, I want to go ahead and get that out. Especially if I'm going to use this piece for a roast piece, well, or excuse me, steak pieces, I want to really trim it a little cleaner than I would if I was going to use it for roast, because I think he probably explained this. When you're roasting something, this sort of stuff here, that all melts down. You know, a lot of heat, a lot of time will melt that stuff away. If I'm going to do it steaks real quick on the grill, it's not going to melt away, and I don't really want that in my mouth. So I would take a little bit of time and I'd go ahead and trim those out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now. What I need to do, okay, so you can see what it looks like now. Okay, I trimmed out the fat, trimmed out all that heavy silver skin tissue, but I still got to deal with the back side. Okay, all of that. Well, okay, I'm going to score this a little bit on the back side. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. I'm just trying to get this heavy stuff separated a little bit. I'm just trying to cut that a little bit so that it lays a little flatter. Because this is one time where I'm going to go ahead and switch knives, and I'm going to use a 6-inch knife. It's a little bit longer. It's a little bit easier, I think, to work with on a back strap. I always like to bring my work close to me, and I'm simply going to cut down, but not cut all the way through. I'm going to stop when I hit that board. And this is where you really utilize the flexibility of that fillet knife. I'm going to put some pressure on it, and I'm going to angle it down ever so slightly so I'm scraping along the board. If I angle it too far flat or up, it's going to rise up off that skin, and I'm going to waste some meat. I'm going to put some pressure on it, angle it down a little bit, and look what it did. Okay, it just filleted it off. You got this beautiful clean cut. Now all I got to do is I got to go back in here and just get underneath that and trim the last of that off of there. I tell you, that's a pretty piece of meat there. That would be a good piece for roasting whole. You can cut a slit in it and stuff some mushrooms and onions and things up in there and roast it like that. Or you could steak it up and use it for steaks, just whatever you want to utilize it for. Same thing here. I'm just going to kind of pull it, and it actually pulls out of there. You see what it looks like. Okay, so it took that off really clean, and there's very little wasted on there whatsoever. So if you want to make a bowstring out of that or something, there you go. Now here, there's that extra muscle that I told you about. The end of it is right down there. And so there's a little seam of connective tissue there. And if I'm really going to make this a pretty piece, I want to get that out of there. And that's what, we always tell people, is this really isn't rocket science. I mean, we're just taking them apart the way the good Lord put them all together, and following seams and following white lines and separating muscles. That's all we're doing. So all I did was I took out that heavy connective tissue, and there's a thin layer of muscle that lays in there. And if you can see it, there's a white line or a ridge that runs down that spine of the, oh, thank you, the spine of the shoulder there. And I'm just going to take my knife and go right down along that and use that as my guide. And I'm going to turn my knife and just fillet it off the shoulder blade. And this is one muscle. Okay, so that's almost like that other piece, right? It is similar to that too. Well, I'll go ahead and take it off. We'll see what it looks like. It lies on the top, but that's where that injury was. So we'll see if any of that is salvageable or not. My guess is probably not. You see, once we're getting up into there, I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time. This is what I've learned. I do a lot of grinding. I'll take the big parts off the leg and the back strap, and all that's roast and steak, but everything else gets ground. But I found that you could take another 45 minutes on some of this and waste a lot of time trying to get 1 or 2 more pounds of meat that you throw into your ground pile, and probably it's the lower quality stuff, and you can really change the overall quality of your whole grinding batch. So I'm not going to waste a bunch of time trying to get that out of there. That's just not something I would recommend. Now there is another pretty good chunk of meat on the back side of the elbow, if you will, right there. And what I can do is I can go in this way, cut down to the bone, and simply work my knife around that. Flip it over. Okay, and that's a pretty good chunk. There is a little bit of injury there that I would want to trim off. And I, always err on the side of trimming a little wide. And there is fat, a fair amount of fat right there. But without a whole lot of trimming, that's a chunk that could go into the grinder. And I think he talked about, chunking it up so you don't have long strips of that stuff wrapping around the grinder blades. But that's the kind of stuff that I would grind.